Let's see if we remember how to do this. Welcome to BWI Live. I'm Thomas Rankar, off for spring break. Now we are back. There's news coming out this week. Penn State's Pro Day is tomorrow. And, of course, we are 1 week, 7 days from Penn State spring football, from things happening, pads on, maybe. I don't know if they're going full pads or even shells on the first day, but there will be football on a football field with coaches and players, and we're going to be talking about all of that today. Linebacker preview in our spring preview series coming up. And, of course, today with us is Nate Bauer from BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Sean Fitz is either in Chicago, in the sky, or somewhere else. I don't know. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego is his situation today. So, Nate, thanks for being here. Thanks for pulling through even on the 2-hour delay, because on the 17th of March, snowstorm in Happy Valley.
It was like nice out. I mean, I guess it rained, but it was warm enough yesterday. Yeah. So 1 2-hour delay, and no, the 2-hour delay turned into school cancellation, but the daycare is still open. So 1 child home, 1 not.
They canceled school today? Do they just have like a whole bunch of these days banked? Like, because that's what happened at the end of school for me. It was like, they're like, you know what? We haven't used any. So, like, we're going to call this an energy day.
I think that, and I'm completely speaking out of turn here, but like the State College Area School District is an interesting example of like, I live in the urban, part of State College, but there are very rural areas of the school district that are less plowed, like the road. I will say, super icy.
It's because it rained. It was a full-on rainstorm, thunder, and then snow. You're right. Let's get into today's first topic of the video, which is Penn State Pro Day coming up tomorrow here in Happy Valley. Big day for it takes a moment to reflect that this is the class of 2022's special day. 5-star prospects all over the class. Number 5 ranked class, and here we are going, hey, if Drew Allar throws, does that mean he's a second-round draft pick? Like, where we started versus where we are is very different from what we expected. But, I'll only have another month of saying that before they all are in the NFL, so I just have to get it in one more time. Tomorrow, I'll be there providing updates for you, both on social media and at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, here on the YouTube channel as well, probably through Shorts. Everyone running in Shorts on the Shorts will be up for your Shorts feed. The 40 times I'm interested in, Nate, because I don't think anyone's going to run. I don't think it really does anything for anybody. The people who all ran good times. Maybe Khalil Dinkins is going to try and redo his 40 time at Penn State. But guys like Zakee Wheatley, Katron Allen, do you think they're going to try and get some home cooking? Some fast stopwatches here in this neck of the woods as opposed to Indianapolis? Because that does seem to be what happens. Do you think we're going to see some 40 times for guys that we're curious about for the Penn State Nittany Lions that are going to be participating tomorrow?
Sure. They typically are better. What's the accuracy of those better numbers? I don't. Does anybody care? Like, does wasn't it the Schefter tweet? Who had the tweet that was like, yeah, Carnell Tate. Tate, was that the one, right?
It was Carnell Tate.
But everybody says right.
I
don't know. It just seems to me like front offices see what they want to see and take the data that they want to take. And I mean, if somebody thinks that they can impress by running fast in Holuba Hall, then sure, I think that they'll do that.
Yeah, I think Zakee Wheatley is the guy that has the most to gain from that. He's all over the board because he's a good football player. And then just some of the questions about that speed and kind of the value of the safety right now going into the NFL is it's never high. It's never going to be a position like corner or defensive end. But it had a resurgency over the last couple of years. And then I think you see like in the free agency period, Jaquan Brisker had a good career on his rookie contract with the Bears. They didn't re-sign him, and he went for a 1-year prove-it deal to Pittsburgh. There is, unless you're one of those freak athletes like a Kyle Hamilton that does everything, the position is not necessarily a priority. And I think we're going back to more of a box versus free safety, and Wheatley would be a box safety. I'm pretty sure, like from a speed perspective, but from a skill perspective, he's more of a coverage safety. So I don't know. He's the hardest one for me to read when it comes to how he's going to fit in the NFL, who's going to like him, and how those skills are going to translate to the next level, because he's 6'3" almost. He's tall safety. Everyone's going to look at him and see a box safety, and I don't know that, fully that's his best skill set. But of course, Drew Allar going to be the star of the day. I'm assuming he's going to be throwing, Nate. What do you expect? I'm going to throw you the question, and you can just, if you want to just like rebound it right back to me, go for it. But I don't know. Is there value in Drew Allar throwing, given his story and his rehab timeline since the last time we saw him?
Can he throw better than he threw in Indianapolis?
Sure. I mean, I don't think he was bad in Indianapolis. Obviously, he was good given what came out of there. But when you are doing a scripted series with your receivers in your practice facility, there is it's easier to have a perfect day, and to show off like the touch, the accuracy, the arm strength, zipping a deep out for 15 yards and really making the ball whistle. I think he can do some of those things that maybe you pull a little bit off of it when you're at the combine throwing at guys you don't know. And so if anyone's going to be convinced by in-person scouting, which a lot of teams are discredit, a lot of analysts discredited like the value of in-person versus just seeing what you see on film, then absolutely I think he could make everyone look at him and see, oh, okay, so that's a Matt Stafford, Joe Flacco sort of player where he's got generational arm talent and all that stuff that we talk about. So that would be what he's trying to do.
Yeah. You started this conversation by talking about, not the way that this class of 2022 thought things would end, right?
Yeah.
Right. This isn't the situation you thought that they would be coming into. They didn't stop being good at playing football because they lost some games last year and got hurt and had this epic collapse. There are examples all over sports all the time of teams, players, individuals, whatever, not reaching their potential. Mm-hmm. These guys mostly did that in 2024. They didn't in 2025 for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Comment Chiefs last year. Wasn't it the Eagles last year to a certain extent? Their defense was like supposed to be generational. And I really struggle. I just struggle with this sentiment as though individually these aren't good players still.
Yeah.
Right. That and again, like I understand
it's
Drew
where it happens
and the conversation.
On the timeline. It's all narrative based, right? And this is the funny thing is like we have these stories. Like we talk about these players. We talk about this as a story of a 4-year story arc of these, and you always want to end with the climatic finish, the big battle in the superhero movie or in the explosions and the car chase scene, and you want that payoff at the end. And when it happens in 2024, then yes, that's where we are in this particular situation with these players. Is there less than satisfactory? And here's the thing, Nate, is like for what they were from a class perspective, from an individual perspective, it's not like these guys didn't have questions. Every football player has questions, and it's the lack of answers to those that happened in 2025 that I think a lot of people are now working through of like, we know they're good. How good? Are they NFL starter good? Are they NFL backup good? Are they NFL player good? Like that is kind of the calculus you're trying to do here in this particular process. Last thing,
Frank,
go for it.
When was I'm gonna get crushed because I'm talking about things that I don't know. When was JJ McCarthy drafted?
He was drafted after his junior year. I want to say that was 2023.
No, but like where in the draft?
Oh, top 10. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. 9th, I want to say.
Is JJ McCarthy a good NFL quarterback?
TBD, but not right now, for sure. But here's the thing. That was that was the question about him. Because if you watched his, he was the AI didn't give me a good answer. 10th overall. Okay. When you watched him, he did some really good things on third down about 25 times because they didn't ask him to do a whole lot. So that was a risk. It was a gamble. But he also performed in the biggest situations well and had that narrative to go behind all of the talent, right? And so that's everyone wants to see the production, and the production for a quarterback equals wins, right? And so that's part and parcel with the position, and it may be stupid, but it is still what we do.
But they, and I get it, and it's just something I'm going to litigate probably forever. But like Drew, I saw it with Drew. Like there were, he had some of those games. He didn't have them all. Yeah. I get it, but
he didn't win those games is what everyone's going to say.
He didn't, like Drew Allar didn't lose the UCLA game.
No.
Jim Knowles lost the UCLA game, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would say Drew lost the Oregon game. I mean, I get it. He threw the interception at the end.
That's the point.
But also
those are the things. Those are the situations in which a quarterback, you want to be him top 10 overall. And by the way, some quarterbacks get away with this, right? So Mitch Trubisky was at North Carolina, I want to say, and like didn't have a good supporting cast, was the number 1 overall pick because of potential, right? And so Drew Allar is on the potential train, but he also ended his season injured. And so like I don't there's no real end to this conversation necessarily, and like we'll have a conversation about it tomorrow based on the things he does.
But so many players in the NFL that you have to put yourself in that position to lose that game, right? To lose the way that they did. Okay. To me, there is this glossing over of this body of work that says, yeah, just crushing killer to throw an interception to end the Notre Dame game, right? Like in an isolated case in that moment, yes, that is a stain, right? That will linger. The Oregon, what happened at the end of that game will linger for sure. Mm-hmm. But the second half, I mean, frankly, the first half of Oregon Big Ten championship game, Drew balled. Like he went nuts. The Boise State game was great. Like there were all of these things that you have to do to put yourself in that position to have that mistake. That again, throwing out a number that is probably not real. 90% of these guys never even remotely come close to. Like their teams are never in that situation. So like, how do you judge? How do you judge and say like, yes, you failed in this moment where these guys didn't fail in that moment. Those guys weren't in that situation to fail. So I think Drew is going to be fine, honestly.
Yeah, and by the way,
somebody's going to really like him.
I am not trying to say that Drew Allar is bad. I'm not trying to say Drew Allar is good. I'm giving the arguments about why he is a controversial quarterback in this particular draft. That's what I'm trying to do here in this situation. Is just saying.
I'm responding to
the comments.
6 months of like, I mean, it's not even the comments. It's just like, I haven't been on the show in a little while, and all the stuff about Drew in the NFL Combine, and like, but look at how much he stinks when the moment is big. It's like, well, okay, I hear you. It's a valid argument. The moment is only big in the first place because of what he did to get there, right? and I'm not saying it's just him, but I'm saying that team could not have reached those levels of relevancy were it not for the performances that put them there.
And context and nuance are all these things. And so, like, here's a part of this that I want to end with. So a couple guys that have an opportunity to do something tomorrow that they didn't have previously. Nolan Rucci, right tackle, did not get invited to the combine. I think he can test well because he's very athletic, not a big dude for being 6'8" or whatever he is. And then Devonte Ross didn't get invited to the combine. He's the guy of those three that I think has an NFL future because Trevor Pena, he is both small for the NFL, and he's not electrically fast, like in the straight line. If you're going to be on the undersized side, you need to have some sort of additional tool. I think he could be, hang on in the NFL as a special teams guy, practice squad, be in a camp, something like that. But to me, Devonte Ross is the guy that has an opportunity maybe to stick in the NFL. Again, not the fastest guy in the world, but fast enough with his skill set. And that says something. They had 3 senior receivers, and the one guy that I think has any pro potential is Devonte Ross, who's 5'9", 180 pounds. So the offense, the receivers, all the context. And there's going to be the no nuance crowd that doesn't care because quarterbacks just get it done. And I don't agree with that, but I do think that there is some wisdom to take from those because some quarterbacks do get it done, but we don't need to have that. We're not going to settle that or solve that here today. I do want to tell you about something, and Nate, this is something that actually I'm going to throw to you. Anti-Fragile Brewing Company in downtown State College. Tell me about one of the best places to grab a drink in State College.
Best people, best beer, East Calder Way. If you have a designated driver, there's plenty of parking on the street, so please do not use that as an excuse to not check it out. But yeah, Uncle John's cheesesteaks out in front. It was actually my birthday last week, and
I didn't know that.
Frank, it doesn't matter. At this point, you're just getting old, right? Where it's not a it's not a thing to be happy about. But guess where my birthday dinner came from? And I know there's going to be some foodies in the chat that are upset with me for, some not having an exotic steak of some variety, but I did have a cheesesteak from Uncle John's, and it was awesome. So
watching here on the YouTube channel, how could you not want that?
So good.
So good. Yeah.
So good. Cheesesteak. And yeah, the beer inside is arguably even better. So
the beer outside really hits well when you can sit outside and drink a beer out on the patio. You can smell the cheesesteak. It's right next to you. Great place to be. So make sure you check them out. If you come in for spring football, you come in to check things out. The weather is warming up. This is a place that people like to come just to be outside and visit the area. Make sure you stop in at Anti-Fragile and tell them that you heard about it here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel here on the show. Speaking of the show, we took a week off. That makes me nervous because I'm like, is everyone going to be here? Is everyone going to be in their seats when the show starts? So just to help me out, please, let's start strong this week with liking the video and subscribing here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. I appreciate Fitz. We did an awesome mailbag series. If you didn't see it, Nate, we did an hour of mailbags. Like you and I used to do back in the day. We did a full show of mailbags. We put it out last week, and those did very well. But we're here live, 10 a.m. Just want to make sure everyone's muscles are, kind of back and getting warmed up and getting loose. So like the video, subscribe here to the YouTube channel, all that great stuff. Now let's get into today's main topic, which I'm very excited to talk about, which are the linebackers. Penn State's spring football preview series. We're continuing it. They start 1 week from today. We'll be looking at all of these things throughout camp as well, but we've been working our way. I'm trying to bounce, Nate, between the offense and the defense so we don't do all one side then all the other. This is a really interesting one to me. The linebacker room has a lot of different ways they could go in a defense that I don't think is fully defined just yet. So do you want to start with me asking you questions? Do you want to ask me questions, or do you want to go with the biggest questions overall? We have to start with a question that we can then answer. So what do you think?
Can Cale Brazina start?
No, but yes, depending on how healthy Tony Rojas is. So to me, that's the biggest thing here is Tony Rojas' health and the timeline, which he outlined for us in February. Is this almost a month ago at this point, Nate? It's 3 weeks ago? Yeah, 3 weeks ago. He had this to say about his recovery from his injury earlier in the 2025 season?
On track right now, ahead of track. Most important thing is I'll be full go all summer and past that. So spring ball comes, we'll see what I can do at that time. But I'll be good.
How challenging has it been to come back from this for you?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, but I just have the right mindset every day. I go to rehab, and I feel like I'm punishing the rehab right now, and I'm doing very well. So I think it's all about the mindset, and obviously it was hard at first, but these type of challenges will build a man. So it's been I've had a good mindset.
So just a quick thing here from Nittany Eagle Brad in the chat. He says LaVar Arrington Jr. getting a role. He is now an edge rusher. He's now a defensive end on this particular roster. So I think he will play linebacker like reps. Just like that gets into a whole can of worms that aren't necessarily what we're talking about today. I do think he's going to have kind of a hybrid role, but his primary job is going to be rush the passer and play off the edge. So he's not in our conversation about linebackers today, even though people like the line, people want to blur the line between outside linebacker, which doesn't exactly exist anyway, and edge rusher and linebacker. So it's all neither here nor there. So what do you think about Tony Rojas' situation, his timeline here, given that this is a new defense, new teammates, and despite the fact that he's a returning veteran and probably a team leader, it's all new. Everyone should have a clean slate here, right?
Yeah. Knee injuries, I'm always I'm a healthy skeptic of how quickly guys, right? And look, what else is he going to say? Right? And I'm not even putting doubt into him being ahead of timeline. I'm sure he is. These guys are freak athletes. They rehabilitate faster than normal mere mortals. Right. That's all good. It's not really about that. It's about what is the ceiling and how fast can you get there off of an injury that frankly prevents you from being that.
Especially in the area of movement skills, right? And that is his strength as a football player.
Yeah. I don't want it to sound as though it's, I don't want Tony Rojas to clip me and be like, oh, well, I proved the haters wrong. Right. It's just given his circumstances 2 years ago in 2024, where he's playing with one shoulder, right. And still played well. Right. And you could see there were times that he didn't play well, but overall he was still able to gut through that and contribute. And ACL is it's different. It's just, you can't play through that. And the idea this is complete broken record city for both of us, but when you're spending time rehabbing, you're not spending time doing all the other stuff that everybody else is doing.
Yep.
And there is a gap that develops because of that. An information gap, right? I think he said he was spending 4 hours a day ish in the training room, right? Like that when we talked to him.
And that's how you rehab ahead of schedule. That's how.
Yeah.
So people think that the answer is rest, and it's actually to move it correctly and make sure that you are continuing to strengthen the area, even if that doesn't mean weight training, right? But it is a strengthening in its own way, which is if you've got the drive to do those things. But there is only a certain amount of. He's not Wolverine, right? So he does not have a special healing characteristic or property, and it takes the time it takes. The thing that I've always talked about, Nate, here on the show is you have missed all that time of learning the defense, sure, but you've also missed all that time in the weight room. And that is where I think I may overestimate in terms of what it takes to get a guy like Tony Rojas back to that situation. But you're not going to get better. It's a bank account, right? When you make a major purchase, you stop going this way and you go right. So you're just trying to get back to where you were before the major purchase. And you don't get to deposit big lump sums. It's a daily process. You only get to put in a certain amount each day.
Yeah, we're so poor.
I like that.
We're the poor. Yeah. Anyway.
I don't know what it's like to live on debt or be one of these people that is like flying around the country. Yeah. So in that vein, let's talk about the players that we have involved here. So 3 different tiers here. And by the way, I wrote about all of these. I did a depth chart breakdown and a preview of every single player over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I can't believe I forgot to mention this, by the way. We've got a special spring deal going on right now. It is, once again, 50% off for the bundle. And what is the bundle? It's Blue White Illustrated on 3 Rivals, plus a full year of access to The Athletic. So you get all of that for 50% off for spring football. It's the spring sale, spring cleaning, all that great stuff. And so I wrote a depth chart series, both sides of the ball. I broke down where I think the linebackers fit in this defense, where they will initially line up. And so, did you have something you were going to interject there?
I was just going to tell you that I've been reading them. It's been a tremendous resource as I've tried to sort out things like the offensive line, which I'm completely unqualified to.
I mean, that's a big wild card there, because I couldn't even separate tackle. It was just tackle.
Six tackles, and the guard. They're all everybody's cross training, right? That's
Yes, I mean that happens every time. Here's the problem: is like, well, this also works for linebacker as well.
We're completely derailing this. I'm sorry.
No. But it's important, and that's why I'm going to tie it back so that it all like the circle is complete. At tackle, they're going to work on both sides, right? But you got to have a home. You got to have a primary place that you're working, because when you are trying to build cohesion in a unit, you need to have a home base, and then you can work somewhere else. At least that's my view of like what I would do and what I think most responsible people in these situations do. But it's not an advantageous thing for the player to do, to pigeonhole themselves into one of those positions, because they're like, I can play anywhere, which means I'm going to play, which they're trying to manifest. But the reality might be, you're a better right tackle and X is here, so you're not going to be playing anywhere. Yep. And at linebacker, this is still very much up in the air. I think the biggest, most interesting thing that happens this offseason is the difference between Sam and Will outside linebackers. So those are the 2 outside linebackers. Sam is to the field. You play in space. You're more the athlete. Will is more of the attacker, box linebacker, bigger, more physical, blitzes a little bit more often. But you can change those things up. Like you can make anyone can blitz, right? But both Caleb Bacon and Tony Rojas are Will linebackers. And so who's the actual starter there? Like if you had to line up with 11 and you're not playing 3 linebackers, and they're not going to be playing 3 linebackers every single snap of the 2026 season, which one of those 2 guys is your starter? Because they're both seniors. Like they're both veteran players. They're both team leaders. They have overlapping skills. And so like there is a way to make this work, but it is one where Tony Rojas is not playing that more premier position in the defense.
It's kind of interesting too, from the for the conspiracy wing of all of this. There really isn't any lingering opportunity for favoritism.
Yeah.
Nope. Nobody has a history with any of these guys.
The defense coordinator doesn't. The head coach does, but not the position coach.
Right.
Tyson V did recruit some of these
guys,
like Uber Ebel, but in this particular hierarchy, not all of them.
Right. So, point only being, if the objective is fresh eyes and biases that are unclouded, right?
Yeah.
You would think that the situation would be.
Do you think that there are favoritisms and biases that are wiped off the table that would involve some of the players we're talking about here? Because
no,
it's fair to say those things, and I think it's correct to say those things, and then it's like, are there biases about some of these guys? The other thing here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm interested to see the integration of these guys coming from Iowa State. So I have yet to be able to write about this and do like an actual video breakdown, because learning the Iowa State defense, which has no bearing on what they're going to be doing here, but it is informative of what these guys were doing before to understand their talent level and what they bring to the table at Penn State. So I was listening to Tyson, is it Veit or Veit?
I think Veit.
Tyson Veit gave when he was back at Iowa State previously, gave a coaching clinic about playing linebacker in his defense. And Cooper Ebel actually turned me on to this when we talked to him 3 weeks ago, saying that at certain times he's a glorified defensive lineman in their system. And what that means is, I was thinking that the linebacker that's on the edge of the line of scrimmage is the guy that basically is changing the front, so that'd be Caleb Bacon, right? But really what they would do is they'd run the middle linebacker into the defensive front and make him a 3-technique defensive tackle. So you'd line up close to the line of scrimmage and just run head first into the line to basically like, surprise, now I'm here. And so that was how they would try. Yes, that's it. Gotcha. You ran into the run blitz. That is how they were trying to run defense. And that's how you got a lot of boomer bust from that defense. But it's also like, did Cooper Ebel learn how to read and react in that defense? Or is he more a downhill thumper that doesn't have the, I don't want to say doesn't have the skills, but hasn't done the things. And conversely, what don't we know about him or Cale Brazina or Caleb Bacon based on the fact that they were all doing this, right? So you have 3 defensive linemen and then you have 4 linebackers, and they're just like throwing like, kind of like darts every play, who's going to be attacking the line of scrimmage to make that 3 down front a 4 down front. And so in this situation, do they have the opportunity to play the run better and to play the pass better, because they're not doing that?
4 linebackers or 3 linebackers? Wasn't it 3-3?
Yes. The problem is they also added Marcus Neal in, and so like there were a lot of 4-4 looks where they would have him in the box as well. But yeah, I misspoke. It's a 3 linebackers. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like this idea of resourcefulness.
Yeah. Are you saying that's from the previous scheme?
Yeah, no, I just, for Iowa State, like it's kind of a classic trope of, this is what you got.
Yeah.
What can you do with it? And I think it better prepare it. It may not make them perfect fits for Dan Lynn this season. I don't know, right? I mean, they're just going to have to recruit for that and portal for that in the future. But for right now, it's okay. They have experience doing this thing. How, in my mind, how does Dan Lynn adjust to that? Right. This is the talent that you got. And I know what you might want to run, but chef.
I think they fit fairly well, because this is also something that I've been thinking about, and I was looking at over the spring break where we weren't on air, is trying to understand what Danton Lynn was doing. Because you look at 2025 and you look at what he did, and I'm like, this is wild. Like, this stuff is crazy. 6 defensive linemen playing nose tackles, and like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't fit necessarily what we have been told or what we've been expecting from this particular defense. And so I talked to some of our colleagues over We Are SC, and they said, take a look at the 2024 defense, because that's more, I think, of what he wanted to do, even if he didn't have the personnel to do it really well. And then you look at that, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a defense I'm used to. This is a 4-down defense. But that ability and willingness to adapt from 3 different defenses in 3 different years is a benefit for this particular group, because Caleb Bacon spent 20% of his snaps, maybe I'm just making this number up, but like 20% of his snaps he spent playing defensive end from that position, right? Whether or not he actually rushed the passer or did that, he was lined up in that position. Dan Lynn's defense is similar. There's 2 paths this can take. The Seattle Seahawks, also in the coaching tree, Mike McDonald from that Ravens defensive hierarchy from all the way back to Rex Ryan, right, in New York with the New York Jets. And then you have Jim Leonard, who was also in that coaching tree, who was at Denver recently. And so you have the ability for this team to be multiple, to play 5 defensive linemen, to play 3 linebackers, to play 2 linebackers. And so it's really up to who has those skills to change the front and who has those skills to play in coverage. What are the best 11, right? And so I don't think we know just yet what the best 11 are for this particular front, which is why I've been talking about like all the things they're going to be and saying it's going to be a bunch of these things and then saying it's going to be a bunch of other things, because that is yet to work itself out, I think. And that's, to me, the linebackers in this conversation. If Rojas is healthy, he's the only player that I see on the roster that can play that field linebacker position and be athletic in space and to be a quasi safety and also an enforcer in the run game and blitz and do everything from out there. If they don't have him, they're not playing three linebackers as much as they would with him at full speed.
Yeah, they're going to have him. He's going to be there. It's just, who is he? Right? Like, what is he at that stage in the process? Because, it'll be like, again, Tony Rojas didn't stop being good at playing football. He's a really good football player. He will have a really good football playing career. It just short-circuited last year. So, yeah, and to expect him to be at that level or better is not impossible. It's not even doubtful. It's just an unknown. And so I think that I've talked about this with you before here, but I mean, that was kind of the entire conversation with those assistant coaches on the defensive side of the ball during that availability, February 4th, whatever that was at the beginning of February, was how do you plan? Like, how do you plan when you don't know what your pieces
don't have anybody
are?
You have a bunch of people that aren't available. Yeah.
Try playing chess where none of the pieces have actual designations. You just have to guess. Like, you just, right? It just makes it very, very difficult to know exactly what you're going to have and how advantageous it is to being the best version of yourself that you can create as a defense. Like, T. Frank, is Dan, does he want to be? The conversation with Jim Knowles last year was trying to be everything all at once and how impossible that is to be in a new build. Is that, does Dan do that?
So okay. There's two aspects to this that I do think he wants to be everything, but not all the time, all at once. There's multiplicity, and having an answer for every team week to week is the plan of this defense. So it's not about like we run this and you are going to line up here and that's where you're going to be all season long. If you're playing Michigan, what do we need to do to stop the run against Michigan? So and to back up even further, from a philosophical perspective, what I have seen from Dan Lynn is he will do anything to stop the run. What I saw from him in 2025 at USC, the absurd amount of bodies they put in the box, was that they weren't good at stopping the run, so they were going to throw every resource they could at it to make sure that was something they could do, which then left the secondary out to dry a good bit. Jim Knowles was the opposite. He said, we are not going to give up explosive plays. You can run the ball if you want to try, but we're going to do a bunch of tricky things up front so that you're not going to be able to run where you think you're going to run until they just steamroll the defensive tackles and defensive ends, and suddenly they're out in space. Dan Lynn will not do that, in my estimation. But what would he like to be? He would like to be a defense that controls the line of scrimmage with 4 down defensive linemen, and on early downs, maybe he mixes it up and plays 5 down defensive linemen, and then he stops the run and then plays coverage and uses chaotic changes in the picture from a traditional alignment, meaning he's not using 3 safeties, to make the quarterback's life hell. It's traditional football, but it's the blending of, all of the traditional football aspects together to make a defense instead of a more college-y defense that uses 3 safeties and tries to obscure passing lanes and is pass first. So does that make sense? Did I explain that in a way that makes sense? Because I felt like, and so it comes down to like who's good at these things. And so Brad wants to know, was it Campbell or Franklin that switched LaVar to defensive end? Campbell made that decision this offseason. And I think that the ability for a guy like LaVar Arrington to rush the passer and drop into select situations plays into that traditionalism and blending of the different fronts and coverages together, because you need that versatility. You need some hybrids there to play between and be kind of the gray area that the offense can't diagnose pre-snap. So just kind of folding in that conversation from earlier about LaVar and why he was moved to defensive end. Beyond it's just his best skill set.
Yeah. The situation that you outlined, are we are we in unison that the corners are probably the strongest position group on the defensive side of the ball? So you would.
And I think that it was, so here's another thing. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but it was an intentional. Matt Campbell is not a dumb man, and he is very aware of what he was working with. And I think to your point about not playing favorites and not having his guys, like certainly he has his guys, but like they did not have corners that could play at this level and do the diverse grouping of things they want to do if they just brought everyone from Iowa State. One of their corners they brought from Iowa State is playing safety in this defense. So they targeted positions they did not have. Tackle and corner specifically in that from the Penn State roster to retain those players. Defensive end was another one where they didn't quite make it all the way, right, with Chaz Coleman, but they still focused on maintaining and trying to retain some of those young guys, and Deshaun, all the way down to Deshaun Burnett, who is a guy that I wouldn't say fits completely what they want to be from a size perspective, but is a good pass rusher and is somebody who has, some juice off the edge and is a great athlete. So they were specific in targeting positions on the Penn State roster beyond just talent, but also talent they didn't have to bring over and blending those two rosters together. So corner absolutely is that for the defensive side of the ball.
And on the offensive side of the ball, it's up front.
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading a super chat. On the offensive side of the ball, it's the offensive line.
They didn't have any offensive line.
They didn't have any offensive linemen to bring over. Here's a question I have for you. And it's kind of going to echo the conversation about Tony Rojas, but Alex Tash got injured late in the year.
Yep.
I have him as a key backup here because, that talent, that athleticism is something they obviously wanted to keep. Is this a potential redshirt year for him, given the timeline of his injury? Or, how are you viewing Alex Tash in this conversation as somebody who was factoring in at the end of last year and did not redshirt?
Yeah, and they liked him. Obviously, but wasn't only playing because of the desperate need there. Also, he was a guy who had developed through his first season. I think a mid-December injury of that variety is problematic. Can it be done? Yes. Look, if you're in the key backup role, then this happens to every college football team, right? Is what if, right? What if you lose a starter? Then what happens?
Yeah.
In the portal era, depth is more tenuous, I think, than it's ever been. This is just what is. You don't have a quarterback ready to go because nobody sticks around till their junior year to be a backup. It's the same situation at most positions where you just don't have that intermediary of really juniors and redshirt sophomores. You don't, those guys don't exist anymore in college football rosters. So because of that, if the guys that you have outlined as starters, right, with Bacon, Nebel, and Rojas, if one of those guys is unavailable for any reason, then what happens? That's where Alex Tash becomes, one, necessary, but two, problematic that he's coming off of that situation. It's just going to be, again, right? We always talk about how important it is. Like the conversations that you have with players, and part of this is a symptom of just Penn State being the way Penn State has been forever, which is to limit media access and reporter talking, right? We don't have conversations with true freshmen during their first year on campus. So that first chance to talk to these guys is after their freshman year. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's reflected in their answers all the time after that first year, right? They have that first year in the program. And it's like, man, if I only knew then what I know now. Well, Alex Tash isn't going to get a chance to do that or to be that because his time from mid-December until, well, let's just call it 9 months or 8 months until August, is not going to be spent parlaying the lessons of his first year on campus into
the improvement
progress.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is a deep group or not a deep group? And I know you just said transfer portal era depth is always tenuous, but if you look at this defense as having options, and one of the options is to just play 2 linebackers all the time, which is absolutely a option for this defense to go with if that's the way it goes, then you have 7 players for 2 spots.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about, what's your confidence level in the depth of this room for this upcoming season? Better or worse than last year?
Punt to you first, only because I think last year it became pretty obvious that it didn't have depth last year, but some of those pieces are retained for this year, right? Like the problem is the depth last year were freshmen, of which Alex Hash became kind of a critical piece.
They've got 4 players, and after that, they have guys that could fill a role, but would not be a full-time starter, in my opinion. So having 4 guys that I think can start is better than 2, which is what they had last year. But do they have a 5th guy? Like, I guess they could move LaVar Arrington back if they had to, or if they could do some things to make that be a part of, like, where he's a quasi-linebacker. Or here's another one. Marcus Neal becomes more of a linebacker and plays down in underneath coverage. I think they've got some cover from different areas, but I think it's average. I think their depth and my confidence level in their... The problem is Rojas is not healthy right now. I'll probably feel very good about this when they have 3 actual quality starting linebackers in August than I do right now, when it's like I see 3, and one of them is a guy that I have kind of as he's going to play everywhere and maybe not be an official starter on the team.
So who's playing this spring? Because Rojas is out, Tash is out, Klosterman is out.
Yes, he's also, I think, more of a special teams player at 5'11", 230. I see him more as a special teams player. And
I'm just looking at the bodies. I'm just looking at the bodies, and Arrington's not in the group, so that leaves you Cam Smith, Caleb Bacon, Cooper Ebel, Brazina, Filippo, and Kaiser.
Yeah, who was a freshman?
That's 6 linebackers.
Yeah, and
for the spring.
I don't think is Keon Kaiser here yet. I don't know if he's here yet. He's on the roster, but I don't think he's enrolled yet. So that's the thing. For the spring, really, it's going to be Bacon, Ebel, Brazina, Filippo, Cam Smith. Those are the guys I'm looking at right now in terms of the players that I think are going to be most available and most on the field. Now, again, I should have double checked that about Kaiser, who is a project player to begin with, like a very young freshman that I think is a good middle linebacker of the future. But I don't think there's any way he's available.
I just think it just becomes super interesting based on the narrative that we're having about other players and other positions, right?
Yeah.
Alex Mansky, right? God closes the door and a window open, right? So it's the window, right? Rocco Beck not playing is this window for huge development for Alex Mansky, who gets to develop among these linebackers that they have in the spring based on Tony Rojas and Alex Tash not being available. And the answer is Cam Smith.
Yeah.
Cal Brazina, so those 2 guys. I mean, that's basically it. And Filippo.
Yeah. And I like him, by the way. So there is a world in which Filippo can contribute this year, but he played safety in a defense that was way too complicated at West Virginia. And he was playing a bunch of different positions, but at his best, he was basically playing outside linebacker, where he was in the flat. He's playing the exact position he would play if he were to play this year. But if you're saying Caleb Bacon gets hurt, Tony Rojas isn't healthy yet, I don't think he's going to be bumping in the box. That's where I think that there's some issues with kind of their true box linebackers. Cam Smith, it also depends on how much bigger these guys are. Cam Smith has been a box linebacker already for a year, but he's 210 pounds right now, so I would like to see an updated roster where he's closer to 230 than 215. Final thoughts on I want to get to the mailbag because there are some addendum conversations that we're going to get to when it comes to this particular conversation in the mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. Let's get to the BWI mailbag. I've got some questions in the chat as well. If you want to drop yours in, we'll get to those right now. So I'm actually going to start with this one in the chat from Dow5020, who donates to the channel. Thank you for the donation, super chat. Let's say Drew leads a team down the field to beat Notre Dame with a walk-off field goal. How would the last 14 months have gone, and where is that team at right now? Nate, if he wins that game and they make the national championship game, he's already completed a year in the NFL, in my opinion. Like, he went in the top 10 of the NFL draft that year.
Correct.
And they had a new starter in 2025, and who knows if Matt Campbell's the head coach at this point. Because the expectations flip on their head from a senior quarterback to maybe it's Grunk, maybe they have to go into the portal, maybe it's Bo.
It's not even just that. It's most of those guys also go with him, right? There were players, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 at least. Like, Zach Key could have gone and maybe should have. I think he had
the best year of the guys last year.
Correct.
Think he was the guy that had the most detriment to his draft stock. And I do think he needed a little more this year.
He had also, I guess my point is, he had climbed so much through the playoff that his stock was high coming off of that year. And so, like, it's fine. It's fine that Singleton obviously should have gone. Like, he should have gone.
Is there a bigger fall for anybody than Nick, who in now knowing that he broke his foot at the Senior Bowl and can't even test? I mean, that is unfortunate.
It's the worst, and I feel terrible for him and his family. He's still going to get drafted, and he's still going to be like,
he'll have an opportunity. Nick Singleton is.
He's just a freakish athlete, and has shown the ability to do right. It did not work out last year.
Yeah.
Full stop. That was not the year he wanted to have, and everybody can point to it. And Katron had a better year, like 100%. Does not mean that Nick Singleton's career is a flop. It just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Or that it's over, right? Like, he's not going to get bounced from the NFL in 2 years. Like, his skill set. So all these 5-star athletes, they're going to stay in the NFL for a while because they have the physical tools. That's the whole point of the 5-star is, do these guys have the physical tools to be high-end starters or to be first-round draft picks in the NFL? And On3/Rivals has been very good at identifying that physical talent. That's the point, to me, of the star system, is like, it is a metric and it is an expression of a player's physical talent. And then if you are a 5-star, then it becomes like, do you have the other skills? Do we feel you have the other skills to be the best of the best? And these guys, they went through a year in which some of those things didn't work out for them. This one from Poncho570, top 3 non-starter players that need to have a big spring for the future success of the program. I'm going to throw out Caleb Brazina as a guy we just talked about. If you want to have a third linebacker that takes a step this spring, that is an obvious guy that's going to play. Like, I have him as a key backup, but I really see him as a co-starter, a 4th starter to bounce between both of those positions. So that's one for me. Do you have one on the top of your head that you think is important as a non-starter to come in and have a strong spring to feel good about where the offense or the defense is headed from that kind of holistic perspective?
I don't know if this fulfills the question because he probably will start, but Max Granville, I think, is a massive story.
Yeah.
In
his health,
in every way, right? Like, how healthy is he? And then when he is healthy, how good is he? Because I think they thought, and never got a chance to see that he would have been great last year. So the fact that didn't happen, I would put him in there in that top 3 for sure.
I think that's a great one. And by the way, he I don't want to say he's absolutely, he's good to go for spring. Like, he could have started participating last year at the end of the season, but just with the way everything went, like, it's not going to be a question of health, in my opinion. It's going to be a question of, like, how much progress did he make this offseason, getting back to where he was previously, and then how much, of the talent, right? So, like, we actually get to see the rubber meet the road, hopefully, this year. And I'm excited for that because I think he is very, very, very talented. Another guy that I want to put out here, and this will be my last one, is I'm not sold on the running back room completely. So I think a big spring for Quinton Martin. Yep. You know, he talked about getting bigger and being strong and athletic at his size and making sure he's still as elusive as he was when he was 205 pounds. I think the best case scenario for this offense is they go 3 deep and he's a part of it. Because I think James Peoples is more explosive than Carson Hansen. I don't think he's as explosive or as big home run threat as you would like. Like, there is a threshold at which I think maybe I'm just spoiled with, like, having seen Nick Singleton for 4 years and, like, remembering what it was when it was Kevon Lee and Noah Cain. And I'm not saying this is that, but it's not having the juice in the backfield is absolutely a liability for the offense to mitigate, like, their potency. And so he'd be the third guy I'd put out here. Only a couple of minutes left here. Sure, go ahead.
All of the tackles, the whole group.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but, like, who's the starter and who's the non-starter? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Goodman. Here. So you talked
Sexton.
to Owen Alcini, or you wrote about him. Everyone is saying that it has to be Malachi Goodman because he's a former 5-star size, all those things, and, you know, kind of the clout of his recruiting bias in the situation. But, like, I think they've got 3 good options to go outside Anthony Donko. And I guess what did you learn from your read of Owen Alcini, what his comments were a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and this is not fair to Malachi Goodman, but, like, Javon Williams called, right? Who cares? Yeah. Doesn't matter, right? And again, there's no reason to think that Malachi Goodman is not ahead of, because I think he is. I think it's pretty apparent that he is ahead of where Javon Williams was 1 year into his career, than arguably Javon was by the time that he left. So that's an important distinction there. But point being, it's reflected in the fact that they were retained in the first place, but also just that the last staff, look, are we going to say that Trout is a good coach or not? And I am going to say that Trout is a good coach. That the offense.
How many first round picks on the offensive line did Penn State produce? Meaning they had genuinely standout football players that were elite on the college football level, produced in a way that the team could win, and then go into the NFL. How many did they have before Phil Troutwine? It's 0.
And now, right. And now Vega's going to go.
Yep.
What's the latest on? Like, it doesn't matter. Point being, he's going to go, and then they love Sexton.
Yep.
Love Goodman. Love Alcini. I mean, there's just, in Anthony Donka's absence, I just think it's super interesting to see how that plays out this spring and who kind of emerges.
We talked about it last year of, like, look at all the opportunity for these young tackles to get experience. And then last year at the start of the year, the offensive line did not perform well together. And so, like, it is interesting how to view that. I think that the plan from the offensive coordinator is a lot more, I hate saying these comparative things, but I'm confident they're going to have a plan where the offensive line is not going to be overthinking or whatever it might be last year. And speaking of last year, Bizzle wants to know, on balance, it seemed to be having more fun, or is there a ton of anxiety and expectations trying to, in the first season with Matt Campbell, get to that 9-10 win threshold and compete for national championships? I think this is one of the more overrated conversations we've had, Nate. How do you feel about that? I would say the answer is yes, but I also say that the answer in the grand scheme of like the previous staff versus this new staff and the new direction, all those things, I don't know that it's necessarily it's when we're doing the autopsy of the end of James Franklin's time at Penn State, I don't know that like having fun and all those things are necessarily what this team is trying to accomplish and what the other team was prevented from doing. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, man. In some ways, it kind of, I hate to do this. It just reflects our national politics of just like going back and forth, right? Like whatever whatever the next election is, it was the last person's fault. And so like, that's just, we've had this back and forth. And that's this idea of everyone was uptight and everyone was having their necks breathed down and walking on eggshells like that. That's a sentiment. That's a thing that exists in some respects from some people coming off of last year, 100%. If Penn State, so now it's more fun and everybody's bowling and but I saw everyone having fun at the pool party last August, right?
Yeah.
Like
they used to go bowling before with Franklin. Like it's not like they were not prevented from bowling previously. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been bowling outings before. But also if they don't win, all anyone's going to say is should have spent less time having fun. Like
it's the NFL
working the
equivalent
grindstone
of taking the pool table or the ping pong table out of the locker room or putting it back in when you're winning or losing, when it's not really, those things aren't really relevant to the winning and losing. I will say that, from what I understand, I do think that they are there is a concerted effort to do specific things to get more team cohesion and specifically across the ball. Totally. Making sure that the whole team is not there are so that when you have these rough patches, you don't create factions. And so that's more of like that, remember the Titans team unity sort of thing.
I'm happy to talk about this because I think it is awesome and not talked about enough. The thing that James Franklin was most worried about in the NIL era was some level of equality, right, amongst the roster, so that you like that team internal dynamic of everyone being worried about what everyone else was making. Like he was sick over trying to prevent that. And I'm talking about that in 2022, 2023, 2024. Okay. 2025, it went off the rails.
Yeah.
Right. Like it became
the thing
problematic.
That actually, the fear manifest itself.
It came to life. And so this is all sports. This is not just limited to Penn State football. This is in a lot of like coaches are still worried about that for good reason. And it become like if there is a set of standards for one group that is not applied to other groups, it just poisons the well. It poisons the locker room, poisons all those things. Are there disparities in what people are making for this team? Of course, right? You still have a general framework, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense to everybody to understand that as the young guy, you're making less than the guy who's proven and established and has the track record to go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Also that the effort will be rewarded when you're asking for everything. And this is the thing in football. And the thing that I think that, most people get wrong is that it's not that everyone always wants more money in any, and that is absolutely true. I will not say that that's not true, but it's also the acknowledgement and the appreciation for your effort. And like everyone in this situation has to agree, like this dude's not pulling his weight and he's getting paid more than me. I'm doing a better job and I'm not getting paid. Like the effort has to, and the output has to be commensurate with the compensation. And when those things are out of balance is when you have problems. And leads into a perfect thing. We're already late, so this is not going to be a long conversation, Nate, but I do think I can only have this conversation with you this week, and we don't have a show tomorrow, by the way. I should have said that at the beginning of the show. Tin Man wants to know, is it worth reducing the amount of team sports that Penn State has in order to put more money into the programs that have a chance of winning and making the university money during the fiscal year, which then contributes to having those sports and having as many as possible? So, Nate, should Penn State cut from 31 varsity sports?
No, because the savings that you're going to realize from that is less than future dividends reaped from their successes off the field towards the university. It's just a PR campaign. Like, that's all any of this is.
Gotcha. So that's all money in the margin.
PR is the wrong word, but the development, like, it's an ad spend. Like, it's a good thing. You invest in golf because one of the golfers will go on to be a hedge fund manager and put that money back into the university. Like, that's what it's a good thing. It's a good thing for the university. It's a good thing for the athletic department. And my point is, the amount of savings that can be realized by cutting tennis, golf, softball, field hockey, is less combined than cutting women's basketball. But cutting women's basketball isn't an option, right? That's not a thing you can do because you belong to the Big Ten and you have television obligations. So, like, it's just it would take this mass excision. Is that a word? Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you would have to get rid of a lot of sports. You would have to get rid of a lot of sports, and I don't think Penn State has the appetite to do that. And I think that the ones that Penn State does have that are very successful cost money, but you're willing to do that. You're willing to. I've always compared it to and it's fitting because just have like Oscar award season, like a movie that just does not do well at the box office. You're not going to sell a bunch of tickets, but if it wins Best Picture, it was worth it. It was worth the spend to make that movie because you got the award at the end of the day. And by having that award, your studio gets a lot of praise. It gets national recognition. And most important to Penn State, community appreciation and love. Like it's just this sense of community and pride. Like that's what makes this place go, is being proud of itself over its accomplishments. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for this place. It's a good thing for the university, and they're not going to stop doing that.
We can have nice things. That's what I hear from Nate, is it's possible in the era of athlete compensation and NIL to still have nice things. And that's a good thing. I wanted to end here rather than on the previous conversation, which is why I wanted to get into this, but I appreciate that, Nate. That's a good note to go out on. Once again, just to remind you, we'll be off tomorrow, but we'll be providing you updates, including post Pro Day press conferences here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, highlights of guys running and doing drills, doing our best to get you all that information. I'm going to be out there with 6 cameras and 2 hands, so I will get you as much of the good stuff as I can, while also updating people at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com and giving you the relevant information from Pro Day. For Nate Bauer, I'm Thomas Rankar. We'll talk to you later this week here on BWI Live.